Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, and today we're going to talk about UFC 310. Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Asakura. And my friends, it's going down this Saturday night live at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. You got the undisputed flyweight champion, Alexandre Pantoja, putting his belt on the line against UFC newcomer and former, I was about to call him former Pride champion, Kai Asakura, but he's actually the former Ryzen champion, not Pride. He fights like he's a Pride character. So what a hell of a main event. You got the scrambling machine, the back taker in Pantoja taking on a serious KO threat in Asakura. And in the co-main event, the fans' favorite mythical creature, Shavkat Rakhmonov, is back against the fans' not so favorite fighter in Machado Gary. So we got a lot to talk about. So without further ado, let's get down to business. Main event of the evening for the undisputed flyweight championship of the world. We got the champ, Alexandre Pantoja. He's 28-5, welcoming the challenger, Kai Asakura, who's 21-4 to the UFC. And currently, they got it. Alexandre Pantoja minus 260. The comeback on Kai Asakura is plus 220. So unbelievable fight here for the flyweight championship. And those that are not familiar with Kai Asakura might be asking me, what do you mean this is an amazing fight? This guy's never fought in the UFC. Why does he deserve this title shot? I'm going to tell you why he deserves this title shot. This is a guy who, he's got wins over current top 10 flyweights such as Manel Kape. Also, he knocked out Horiguchi, and he's beat some other UFC vets as well. But Kai Asakura consistently puts on the kind of fights that the fans want to see. This guy is a devastating knockout artist. And when I say that, that's not just hyperbole, because this guy has 13 wins by knockout under his belt. He's got a devastating uppercut. His knee has put many men down. Just ask Juan Archuleta about that. That straight right is on point. His takedown defense is nothing to scoff at all. And for a guy who is making the transition from the ring to the cage, I think that his style is suited better for the cage, actually. So I think he's one of these guys that isn't going to have a hard time transitioning. Like, for example, when Manel Kape first came to the UFC, he had a hard time because he was fighting in Japan with tennis shoes on and he was doing the whole bit. Asakura has never fought with tennis shoes. Asakura fights barefoot, and his style is going to translate well. The only kind of issue that I've had with Asakura is, and this is not an issue in terms of being a fan, just being a betting man, is that he does get wild sometimes. And then the other thing is, why does he lose every single rematch? That's one thing I want to figure out. Like, first time he fights Horiguchi, he knocks out Horiguchi. Second time they fight, Horiguchi knocks him out. First time he fights Kape, he wins the decision against Manel Kape. Second time they fight, Manel Kape knocks him out. First time he fought Horimisu. What's the name of the guy that beat Pantoja on Tough, but also fought Kai Asakura? Hiromasa Ogekubu, that guy. So they fought twice. Asakura fought him twice. First time they fight, Asakura knocks him out. Second time they fought, Asakura loses a unanimous decision. Now, I must put context on that rematch against Ogepu that Asakura lost, because that was his second fight of that day. So it's not like he went into that fight fresh and lost, like to a guy that he had already knocked out previously. He had already fought a hard, full distance match that day, and then a couple minutes later, it's like, hey, now you got to go fight for another another full fight against this guy. So yeah, it was just a tough situation for Asakura, and that's his most recent loss, the second fight he had on one day. So I think Asakura is a stud. I think he deserves this title shot. And I honestly think he has a chance to come out here and knock out Pantoja. The funny thing about it is, if he does knock out Pantoja and then they do a rematch, I would bet big on Pantoja in the rematch. Reason being is Asakura's history in rematches is terrible. Like I told y'all, Kape, Horiguchi, Orimuso Ogepu. I can't pronounce the guy's name, but all those guys beat him in rematches. So if Asakura happens to get the knockout here, I predict that Pantoja wins the rematch. But am I predicting Asakura to win by knockout here? Not so fast, because listen, Pantoja is an absolute stud. You can tell he takes being the champ very, very seriously. I've spoken to my friend Cody Durden, who's also on this card, and I'll give you all a little bit of inside info. So Pantoja, Cody Durden, Horiguchi, and Bruno Bulldog Silva all did this camp together. They were each other's main training partners. So from Pantoja's vantage point, You're in there with Horiguchi, who's already fought Asakura twice. So you're getting all the insights that you can possibly get as far as what it's like competing against this man, Asakura. And then on the other side of things, all you got to do is watch tape to understand what Pantoja brings to the table. He is one of the most elite back takers, I'm going to say, in the history of the sport, and maybe even the best in the sport currently, because Damian Maia is a retired fighter. So now we got Pantoja, and his back takes are unlike anything I've ever seen before. And it's really just like his willingness and his relentlessness and his just when he commits to getting you down and taking your back, he's going to go ahead and do so. And another thing I want to talk about with Pantoja, I want to talk about the kind of takedown numbers he puts up. Okay. When you just look at his last 3 fights, right? So he wins the belt against Brandon Moreno. He lands 6 takedowns in that, and a knockdown too. He lands 8 knockdown. Excuse me. He lands 8 takedowns in his title defense against Brandon Royval, and then he lands 9 takedowns in his title defense against Steve Erceg. But let's take it a step further, right? Those are the amounts of takedowns he landed. But how many did he attempt in all those fights? Against Moreno, this dude Pantoja attempts 11 takedowns. He got 6 of them. Against Royval, this dude Pantoja attempted 14 takedowns. He got 8 of them. Against Erceg, this dude Pantoja attempted 19 takedowns and he got 9 of them. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that if you're betting on Pantoja, you don't need to hope and pray that he tries to shoot for takedowns and that he tries to implement his game. He will implement his game. This is what he does. He is relentless. He has a lot of pride about being champion, and he showed a ton of respect towards Asakura in the interviews I heard. So I don't think he's underestimating Asakura one bit. So this is an incredible fight. I definitely think that Asakura is super dangerous and has the chance to hurt Pantoja. Pantoja's been hurt before. The only guy to drop Pantoja is Davison Figueiredo. I actually dropped him with a nasty uppercut. You know who else has a nasty uppercut? Kai Asakura. But man, Pantoja has an insane chin. His recoverability is ridiculous. Just his mindset and relentlessness to get the fight where he wants it to be is the reason that this guy is now a long reigning champion, making his 3rd title defense of a belt that, only a few guys have been able to keep this belt for a while, man. That flyweight belt is, this is the most technical division in the entire sport. They're the smallest. That means that their technique has to be on the highest level. So I think this is an incredible fight. So everyone's saying that, oh, Asakura doesn't deserve it. They just don't know what they're talking about. It's pretty simple. And I'm sure good people have said that too, but they're just not familiar with Asakura. I am. He deserves this opportunity. Now, the prediction. Am I going to predict him to actually come out here and knock out Pantoja? I would love to be on the right side of history, especially if what I'm saying as far as like Asakura does great in those first fights, right? And then for whatever reason, he loses every single rematch he has. It's not going to surprise me if Asakura wins this and then loses the rematch, but I am going to go with Pantoja just because he's on a vision quest right now, man. Like, he knows exactly where he wants the fight to be. He knows exactly how he wants to fight these fights, and his approach is just relentless. And I'm not getting in that guy's way right now. So I'm gonna go with Alexandre Pantoja to defend the belt and still. But I think Kai Asakura puts on a really good show. And then people talking about this weight cut stuff as if Kai's gonna miss weight, that is ultimate fake news, because the whole talking point is, oh, but he's never made 125 before or whatever. Guys, over there in Japan, they just don't cut that extra weight. So for people to imply that, oh, this is a bantamweight that's cutting to flyweight, that bullshit. This guy is actually a flyweight, was competing against other flyweights, looked similarly sized to all those flyweights, but in the UFC, you got to fight at your optimal weight. And I don't think that this guy's going to have an issue cutting the weight. I would be shocked if Kai Asakura missed weight. This guy's a real professional. So weight cut is not going to be an issue. The issue is Pantoja going to take your bat multiple times? And what happens in those instances? Those are the issues. I'm gonna go Pantoja and still, but yeah, I'm not confident in terms of laying a bet. And some could even argue this is a dog or pass situation because Asakura is that good. But man, Pantoja, it's cool to have another long reigning dominant champ at flyweight. So let's see how far he can take it. Yeah, I'm gonna go and still, but man, I can't wait. Co-main event of the evening, we got a welterweight title eliminator. And by the way, this fight is 5 rounds between Shavkat Rakhmonov, who's 18-0, taking on Ian Machado Gary, who's 15-0. And currently they got it. Shavkat Rakhmonov -350. The comeback on Ian Gary is +285. So basically, you got one of the most well-respected fighters in the welterweight division, just in the UFC in general. And Shavkat Rakhmonov, a guy who the fans kind of consider to be a bit of a mythical creature, taking on Ian Machado Gary, who's also undefeated at 15-0, but the fans haven't gravitated towards him, and they did at first, but the whole Magny situation made the fans completely turn against Ian Machado Gary. And for me personally, I don't really care about what he said at a press conference. Do I? No, let me be very clear about this. Do I agree with the things he said? Do I think he sounds like a total moron sometimes? Yes, but that doesn't really impact how I view how these guys match up. Or like, I don't think Ian Gary acting like an idiot against Neil Magny is the reason that Shavkat's going to beat him. I think if Shavkat beats him, it's going to be because of other reasons. And let's talk about those other reasons. So this dude, Shavkat Rakhmonov, what is his best attributes? What are his best qualities and his best skills? I'm going to say what I think, but I want to know what y'all think. What do y'all think Shavkat Rakhmonov's biggest weapons and tools are? And I'm not talking about the fact that he wears a dead animal on his head. I'm not talking about, the guy has an undeniable presence and aura about him. I'm talking about just pure fighting skills. Where is Shavkat Rakhmonov best at in a fight? I'm going to tell you right now. In the clinch, this guy is disgusting, man. Go pull up that Jeff Neal fight. And that was a big Jeff Neal that missed weight by 5 or 6 pounds. That was a middleweight Jeff Neal, basically. And like, when you pin a guy up against the fence like that, against his own will, and he knows that he can't separate, he can't go anywhere, and he just has to forcibly accept and visibly accept that I'm going to just be eating knee after knee after knee, and there's literally nothing I can do to stop it. Then the elbows start to come in. And then you want to get him back, right? You start to go after a guy like Shavkat. He's got some nasty counters too. He's got some big time hands. The issue that Shavkat has, and it's kind of funny to say it about a guy like this, who, look what he's done, 18-0, and he's finished all 18 of those opponents, half by knockout, half by sub. This guy is as well-rounded of a finisher as they get. So how could you say that there's a hole in his game? The hole in his game is his undefeated record. Oh, Dan, what do you mean by that? How is that a hole if he keeps winning? The hole in his game is the delusion and the arrogance and overconfidence that comes with that undefeated record. And you see that in a lot of fights, like the Jeff Neal fight. Jeff Neal wasn't able to make him pay for certain openings that Shavkat leaves, for example, in the pocket. And it's not about Shavkat having some kind of lack of defense. I personally think it's Shavkat being so confident in his abilities. He has so little respect for the guys that he's fighting, and he has so much confidence in his chin that sometimes he does not move that head off the center line. You saw that in one of his regional fights where he got rocked bad, man. He was doing a ridiculous chicken dance in one of his regional fights, and granted, his recoverability is insane, but he hasn't patched that up as he's come into the UFC, and you've seen him get cracked several times, but the guy is so confident in his ability to recover, and just, it seems like he feels no threat by anyone whatsoever, that he doesn't care what you hit him with, but at some point you're going to have to pay for that. But luckily for him, on the other side, you're dealing with another guy in Ian Machado Gary, who doesn't possess the same clinch abilities as Shavkat. Now, don't get me wrong, I've seen, I remember that 5-round fight that Ian Gary had right before he made it to the UFC. Was the kid's name Jack Grant? Was that the kid's name? And, they went 5 rounds. There was a lot of clinching, but there's not that brutality and devastation in the clinch from Ian Machado Gary. Where Ian Machado Gary is his best is he is a good point fighter. He's very good at running away, making you very frustrated. You have to chase him to close distance. That's when he can kind of pick you apart a little bit, counter you, big leg kicks like you saw in the Magny fight. And a lot of people actually held the Magny fight against Ian Gary. They're like, Ian Gary couldn't finish Neil Magny. And that is, again, fake news. That is total bullshit. He couldn't finish him, or he chose not to finish him. Let's be very clear about, let's be very, precise about this distinction, because I think he absolutely could have finished him. But I think that Ian Gary is an egomaniac, and he wanted to prove a point based off whatever ticked him off at that press conference regarding the comment about, disciplining your kids that Ian Machado took completely out of context and tried to embarrass Magny, but ended up embarrassing himself in the light of all the fans. um, I still don't hold that performance against Gary. Maybe I think he acted like an idiot before and after the fight, but the actual performance itself was a systematic beatdown. Wasn't it like 30-24 on the scorecard? So I'm just saying, man, there's many ways to skin a cat. And just because you didn't finish a guy, you beat the ever loving shit out of him instead for 3 rounds. Like, that's not something I hold against you. So yeah, I know a lot of people hold that magnified against Gary. Yeah, hold what Gary said against him, but don't hold the performance against him. I get it. Y'all had an inside the distance ticket, so you're mad, but I did not have an inside the distance ticket. I mean, Gary was like, what, minus 500, minus 700 in that fight. So I was just passing and watching, and I saw a complete domination and a beatdown. Then their two most recent fights, they actually fought similar type fighters, in Wonderboy and MVP respectively. And they both kind of, it wasn't the prettiest performances on either parts, but they both got past it, and now they meet each other. And basically, the dynamic of this fight comes down to, I just don't think Shavkat's going to be chasing Ian Gary. I don't think he's going to fall into his trap and run into counters and do all these things. I think that Shavkat's going to be methodical enough to know how to close the distance properly. We don't even need to talk about Keenan Song flooring this man, and the fact that if someone with a little bit more killer instinct, a little bit more experience, a little bit more high level, like Mr. Rakhmonov was in that same situation, Ian Gary's no longer going to have an undefeated record, right? So, but the big place here, I want to see what happens in this clinch, because Shavkat, like, this is like watching like movies where like these dudes get pinned up against the fence and they have a look of helplessness about them. It's like, damn, like, I ain't got bullied like this since in high school when the captain of the football team pinned me up against the lockers, like that. Guys like don't get bullied like that in the UFC, and that's what Shavkat brings to the table. So I think Bilal was the guy that was going to give, well, both these guys a hard test, but Shavkat was the original fight. And I just thought that Bilal is a master of game planning and fight IQ and decision making in fight. And I thought that Bilal was going to be the guy that knew the recipe to defeat someone like Shavkat. And while I'm not saying that Ian, look, you see a 15-0 Ian Gary at plus 285 odds, and I can understand why someone would want to take the shot on him. But for all the holes I've seen in both their games, I think Machado Gary is a little bit more vulnerable at this point. And real quick, I know I mentioned this earlier. Is it true that Machado Gary's on this vegan diet? Because those last 3 fights, like, physically speaking, it looks like he's lost a lot of muscle mass. Is that real that his wife put him on a vegan diet, or is that some fake news because people have something against them, so they want to spread some false narrative? But what's not a false narrative is that I do think that Machado Gary's lost some mass last few fights. But regardless, I'm going to go Shavkat Rakhmonov to come out here, hand Ian Gary his first ever loss. And when hopefully it's so impressive that Shavkat's an even bigger favorite against Bilal. And that's when we get to shock the world. So I'm going to go Shavkat Rakhmonov to come out here and hand Ian Gary his first ever L. Now, next up in the heavyweight division, we got a rematch between Ciryl Gane. He's 12-2, taking on Alexander Volkov, who's 38-10. Currently, they got it Ciryl Gane minus 340. The comeback on Alexander Volkov is plus 280. So they fought before. It was actually a 5-round main event the first time they fought. And Ciryl Gane unanimously won, and he pretty much won every single round. One judge had the first round for Volkov. That's about the extent of it. What's interesting about that fight is when you look at the stats, it showed that it was a pretty close fight on numbers, but when you actually watch it, you could see some visible frustration from Volkov, just with the speed difference that Gane had, the athleticism difference. Volkov was trying hard, but he'd get countered, intercepted a lot. And it's been a while since that fight. And look, Volkov's gone on to do some great things since then. He's on a 4-fight win streak. He just beat Sergey Pavlovich. I cashed on him, I think, at like plus 180 odds. So I love seeing this, Volkov have a little bit of a resurgence and one last title run. And with Gane, like, we know he's as talented as they get. We know he's a freak athlete for heavyweight, one of the best athletes. Just, in heavyweight history, man. We also know that there might be some mental things, not that they're necessarily going to come to light here. They only came to light when the great John Jones fought him, or when Francis fought him, and the Francis fight didn't even, turn tides until deep into that fight. That's a 5-round fight. This is 3 rounds. So conventional wisdom says that Ciryl Gane is, look, it's been a few years since that fight. Ciryl Gane's still the younger guy here. Like, so you were that much faster and cleaner than him back then. I assume you're going to be even better than him now. The only thing about it is, does Ciryl Gane still want this? And why do I say something like that? Well, Ciryl Gane's already had his title shots. He won his interim belt against Black Beast. He lost his title fight against Francis. He got smoked in his title fight against Jones. Like, you've already had your 3 title fights. Whereas Volkov, yeah, he's older than you, but he still wakes up every day wanting to be a UFC champion, or at least challenge for that belt. So despite Volkov being the older guy here and the guy who's already lost to Gane, and more often than not, the guy who wins the first fight wins the rematch, especially with the age gap and all that, man, Volkov might be the hungrier guy here. So while a pure pick, I'm a pick Gane, I understand why someone would want to take the shot on Volkov, and just to see that, like, hey, the first fight, the strike numbers weren't that far apart, and just some slight adjustments and a little bit more effort by Volkov, you never know what could happen. And another off night by Gane where he just doesn't pull the trigger, you never know. I mean, you also had Tai Tuivasa go out there and drop Ciryl Gane. So I'm just saying it makes sense why Gane is favored. I'm going to pick him here for the reasons I mentioned. But man, I think that there's a chance that Volkov can surprise a lot of people here. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Bryce Mitchell. He's 16-2, taking on Kron Gracie, who's 5-2. Currently, they got it. Bryce Mitchell -800. The comeback on Kron Gracie is +550. You got 2 flat earthers going at it. I mean, I would have rather them, smoke pot and do a podcast together so I could listen to some incoherent rants, but looks like we're gonna have to see them fight. And basically, I think that this is Kron Gracie. Don't quote me on it, but I assume this is the last fight on his contract. This is his 4th UFC fight, the Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres fight, which he choked him out, which was impressive. The Cub Swanson fight, the Charles Jourdain fight, and now Bryce Mitchell. So to credit Kron Gracie, you fought 4 studs in the UFC, so it's not like you've been fighting bums or anything like that. So respect. You're trying to show the Gracie name is alive and well just by showing up to this fight and fighting the guys you're competing against. Like, I respect that, and the fact that you're not even rounding out your skill sets. You just want to show that pure jiu-jitsu still works at the highest level. Hey, man, if you can come out here and sub Bryce Mitchell, all respect, especially if you do it with something crazy. The next Monday in the gym, people are going to be practicing that. But the thing about it is, you can't be butt scooping in 2024 UFC. And with Bryce Mitchell, he's coming off one of the most devastating knockouts in the history of the sport against Josh Emmett. But prior to that, man, he was doing his thing, man. Like, he had a really dominant performance against Dan Ige, where it's like, if Bryce Mitchell's chin wasn't questioned, don't you think Dan Ige would have slept him? The Ilya Taporia fight, Ilya's the champ, man. Prior to that, Bryce was on a nice little run, man. Bryce was on a 6-fight win streak, including he went out there against Edson Barboza. And I don't know if a lot of people remember this, but he dropped Edson Barboza with a right hand. And Bryce has kind of like a little bit of a funky striking style, because people only think of him as a grappler. He got that twister that one time and this and that, and he's relentless with his takedown attempts. But he dropped Edson Barboza, and his striking style is kind of unique. Like, he loves like side kicks and plays a bit of a distance game. So while it's tough to say exactly how this fight's going to play out, I definitely think that Bryce Mitchell can actually wrestle in reverse in this fight, keep it standing, use those side kicks when this guy tries to butt scoop. Hey, get up, kid. But if he wants to test his scrambling against Kron Gracie, I'm not saying that he can't shut him down there, because I'm under the assumption that Kron Gracie probably only trains in the gi, which is great. I love the gi. Like, as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu purple belt myself, I get asked a lot, what do you prefer, the gi or no gi? And my answer is, be good at both. Like, be good at both. It depends who I'm going up against, because I don't want a guy who's really good at no gi but sucks at gi to be like, oh, you only got me because we were in the gi, and vice versa. I don't want a gi guy who sucks at no gi to be like, oh, you only got me because it's no gi. Fuck it, I'll beat you at both. So that's my philosophy. Be good at both gi and no gi. Whereas I think that Kron, I think he only practices one way of jujitsu, whereas Bryce Mitchell has the MMA jujitsu, and I think that Bryce Mitchell can nullify a guy like Kron Gracie. I would love to see those incredible scrambles, but that's not necessary here for Bryce Mitchell to come out here and get this win. I think that Bryce Mitchell, keep this standing, man. Pick this guy apart, sidekick him, straight rights, make him butt scoop, tell him to get up, do whatever you want to him. So you have to be careful about little spots. But besides that, I think Bryce Mitchell should be fine. I think Bryce Mitchell took the right amount of time off after the knockout loss. And not to mention, people talking about how is he going to come back the same? Guys, is Kron Gracie like a knockout threat like Emmett? Guys, Emmett has the most knockdowns in the history of the featherweight division. Kron Gracie and Emmett are not on the same stratosphere. Emmett's like a perennial top 10 guy. Like, please, this is a massive step down in competition. This is a get right spot. And still, even with all that said, there's still a chance that Bryce might not ever be the same after that. But I like the amount of time he took off. I like this matchup as a good kind of bounce back spot for him. And I'm going to go Bryce Mitchell to come out here and defeat Kron Gracie. Now, kicking off the main card. Now, guys, I know y'all are super worried about World War III, as we all should be, right? You know, all we want is peace and love. But here at UFC 310, the main card opener might be the precursor to World War III because we got Nate Landwehr, who's 18-5, taking on Choi, who's 15-4-1. Currently, they got it. Nate Landwehr minus 140. The comeback on Choi is plus 120. Unbelievable fight. I mean, these are the kind of fights that the fans want to see. So thank you very much to the UFC matchmakers for putting this here for us. I mean, Nate the Train in the UFC, baby. Nate the Train's the man. All violence, and he's one of those guys that as long as his durability holds up and he doesn't go on one of those streaks where like he gets knocked out a bunch of fights in a row, he's going to consistently put on the kind of wars that the fans want to see. And we love a guy like Nate Landwehr. I mean, the war with Onama, the destruction of Ludovic Klein, granted at featherweight, not at lightweight, but still that knockout of Jamal Emmers. Man, you just love to see what Landwehr's been on. Even the fights he's lost, he's fought super tough. And with Choi, I think that he's a forgotten gem. And let me explain what I mean. He came to the UFC such a long time ago. He was knocking everybody out in the first round. They rushed him to a fight with Cub Swanson in 2016. And that fight ends up going into the UFC Hall of Fame as one of the best wars we've ever seen in our lives. So we talk about Landwehr and Onama having this war. Well, Choi ain't no stranger to Hall of Fame type wars, as you know. And, you know, he had some unfortunate results in the Jeremy Stevens and the Jordan fights. But what you got to understand about that was like, what, 2018, 2019? And he had to take the military break leave. And he comes back in 2023 against Bill Algeo, against Kyle Nelson. And man, I thought he put a clinic on Kyle Nelson. I don't know what's more egregious, the fact that two judges scored round 2 for Kyle Nelson, or the fact that the ref deducted a point from Choi in round 3 for an inadvertent clash of heads. Try to call that an intentional headbutt. Yeah, okay, bro. So, because as far as I'm concerned, that's a clear 30-27 for Choi. No questions asked. If you want to include the point deduction, okay, 29-27, Choi. Any other scorecard is unacceptable. How could you give a single round to Kyle Nelson in that fight? That was terrible. And Choi, for a guy who's considered a first rounder bust guy, he's going out there establishing his jab. Now he's got heavy leg kicks. He's mixing it up to the body. His takedown defense, he was able to get back up, reverse position, do all these things. He had a well-rounded 3-round performance against Kyle Nelson in that UFC return, you know, in 2023, when he hadn't fought since 2019, guys. And who knows how much he had been training, you know, with the military leave and all that. I thought he looked very impressive, to the point where Dana White actually gave him his win bonus. He was like, how the fuck was that a draw? Does anyone understand how that was a draw? Like, yeah, we understand there was a bullshit point deduction, but how could two judges score round 2 for Kyle Nelson? That is disgusting. But anyways, he didn't let it bring him down. He comes back against Bill Algeo. He capitalizes, rolls the momentum of the performance from the Kyle Nelson fight and parlays that into the best performance of Doo Ho Choi's career against Bill Algeo. And now it's easy. Everyone's like, oh, Bill Algeo's washed and this and that. It's like, now you're just going to discredit him? Like, oh, okay, bro. And then Landwehr. Landwehr is the man. But the thing about Landwehr is Landwehr gets hurt every single fight. But he has this ability to, he'll take your best shots and then you start to question yourself. You start to fatigue. Then he takes over. The thing about it is, like I said, Doo Ho used to be a first round or bust guy, like back in 2015 or whatever. But guys, in 2023, I saw him go 3 hard rounds with Kyle Nelson, his first fight in like half a decade, and he won every single round. So what first round or bust bullshit. And then the next fight against Bill Algeo, picked him apart round 1, finished him round 2. I'm saying, like, how is he a first round or bust guy? If anything, I think these last 2 performances from Doo Ho Choi have been the best performances of his UFC career. And I actually want to say Doo Ho Choi is back. Doo Ho Choi is no stranger to these wars that Nate Landwehr is going to try to put him in. I just think that Doo Ho Choi, listen, I love Nate Landwehr just as much as anyone else. That plus 270 against David Onama was one of the best bets I made that year. And I even bet on Landwehr against Darren Elkins at like plus 100. And I even bet Herbert Burns against Landwehr, and he knocked him out. Those fights that Doo Ho was getting knocked out in, do you know how long ago those fights were? Mike Goldberg was on the mic in those fights, is how long ago they were. Not even John Anik, right? So from the time that Doo Ho left the UFC after the Jordan fight, Landwehr hadn't even made his UFC debut yet. So Landwehr's entire UFC career took place after the Charles Jourdain versus Doo Ho Choi fight. If we're going to bring up Doo Ho's been knocked out a couple times, Nate's been knocked out a couple times as well. And Nate's been knocked out by worse competition. Point in case, Herbert Burns knocked him out. Julian Erosa knocked him out. And I know Julian Erosa is good, but Julian Erosa has no chin. What do you think Doo Ho Choi would do to Julian Erosa? So MMA math, whatever. The point I'm trying to make here is that I love me some Nate Landwehr, but Nate Landwehr needs certain things to happen for him to win fights. He needs to drag it into a classic Nate Landwehr war of attrition. The issue with that is Doo Ho Choi is in the Hall of Fame for war of attritions. This is nothing new to him. And when you're talking about just clean pocket boxing technique, I think it's night and day. I think Doo Ho is going to light this man up. I actually think Doo Ho is going to come out here and knock out Nate Landwehr and shock a lot of people. And I'm taking Doo Ho Choi for the upset here against the beloved Nate the Train Landwehr. Such a big fan of Nate. Can't wait to see him bounce back. But I think Saturday night, Doo Ho Choi is going to upset Nate Landwehr and knock him out. Now, guys, I just want to give a huge shout out to today's sponsor, Bet105. Check them out at bet105.eu and at bet_105 on Twitter. These guys are an emerging sportsbook that play the game the right way. They don't limit winners. They have fast, easy payouts and some of the best odds in the market. They're a crypto-only book, so you don't have to explain to your bank any bullshit. Also, like I said, with the fast payouts, you don't have to go hire a money collector. You know, I know Connor just got dropped by the Hitman game. You ain't going to have to hire no other Hitman, okay, to go get your money back. You know, these guys, Bet105, play the game the right way. And I'm so grateful that they sponsor today's episode of Half the Battle. And I sincerely hope that you guys enjoy the betting experience that they bring to the table at bet105.eu. Tell them Dan from Half the Battle sent you. So thank you, bet105.eu, for sponsoring today's episode of Half the Battle. Much love. Main event of the prelims in the light heavyweight division. We got 2 former title challengers. We got Dominick Reyes. He's 13-4, taking on Anthony Lionheart Smith, who's 37-20. Currently, they got it. Dominick Reyes minus 330. The comeback on Anthony Lionheart Smith is plus 270. My mama told me that if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. But I love my mom so much, but she is not the host of Half the Battle. I am. So I'm going to say whatever I want. And what I want to say is it is very baffling but impressive at the same time that Anthony Smith made it to a title shot against John Jones. When you look at the run he went on, he beat the ghost of Rashad, the ghost of Shogun. I'm talking like the literal ghosts of them, right? Then he beat then he had a comeback win against Volkan Oezdemir. Okay, here's your title shot against John Jones. John Jones, should we pull up the numbers in that fight? I mean, should we pull up what John Jones did to Anthony Smith in that fight, man? John Jones landed 238 total strikes to Anthony Smith's 45. 238-45, he outstruck him. Now, credit to Anthony Smith for not pulling an Aljo when he got illegally kneed and trying to take the belt that way. I'll respect that. Because yeah, maybe you lost out on kind of immediate money that you would have got from the belt, but you did not lose out on the ultimate respect from the fans and future opportunities. Now you're still behind the desk. Had you taken that, who knows if you'd be behind the desk. But then again, people do have short memories, and they happen to give Aljo a lot of passes, so maybe they'd give Anthony Smith one too. But for me, ultimate respect to Anthony Smith. With Dom Reyes, I mean, it's night and day, his performance against John Jones compared to Anthony Smith. Like I said, with the Anthony Smith fight, John Jones outstruck him by margins that have never been known to man, whereas Reyes and Jones, I mean, it was like a very, very close fight that just came down to the championship rounds, and John Jones made the championship adjustments that he's known for and showed pure greatness. But after that fight, Reyes never truly recovered because, he'd be fighting Jan and Yuri, and he'd be talking about John Jones the whole time, and he'd be doing all these things. But, hey, man, you got past the brutal Jan and Yuri knockout losses, and that's Jan and Yuri in championship form. The Ryan Spann fight, like, I know Ryan Spann's a hit and miss fighter, but from time to time, Ryan Spann will show up. And I mean, even ask Anthony Smith in his rematch with Ryan Spann. I did not think Anthony Smith won that rematch against Ryan Spann. I mean, only one guy was close to getting knocked out in that fight, and it wasn't Ryan Spann. But with Reyes, it's all about the confidence. Yeah, his chin might not be the best, but it's a confidence thing, because that Jones fight played such a mental toll on him that we don't know if he was ever going to be able to recover. And man, that Jacoby fight was exact Dominick Reyes needed to get his confidence back. The fact that, hey, we're not going to, put you in there with any more Jiris or Jans. We're not going to give you Ankalaev or Jamal or Carlos Olberg. Like, let's get your feet wet, kid. Let's build your confidence back. They put him in there with Dustin Jacoby, beautiful knockout to let people know that, hey, you're back. And now you get Anthony Smith, who's slow as molasses, who is just not very skilled, but he's tough. He's Lionheart, but like, is he still as tough as he used to be? Does he still want it? So for as done as people think Reyes is, I think Smith is more done. And all that aside, that's narrative, that's speculative. I just simply think that Reyes is a better fighter than Anthony Smith. I think that Anthony Smith, yeah, he's opportunistic. He doesn't do much, but you leave a couple openings here and there, like, he will capitalize. He's been in the game that long, but Reyes can dictate the dance from the beginning till the end. And with Reyes, it's simply a don't get caught situation and you win the fight. Whereas with Smith, he's going to get his ass kicked. It's about, can you have some kind of comeback win, a comeback finish, some kind of miracle has to happen for Smith here. Smith's not going to be controlling the fight from start to finish. Reyes is on a completely different level. It's just about Reyes not getting caught. But I think Reyes now, he's got the confidence to know that, hey, like, I don't need to retire. I can still sleep these guys, especially kind of these older guys. And I think Reyes is going to come out here, get his second win in a row, get his confidence back, and we'll see where they take him from there. So give me Dominick Reyes for the dub. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Themba Gorimbo, he's 14-4, taking on Vicente Luque, who's 22-10. Currently, they got a Themba Gorimbo -150. The comeback on Vicente Luque is +130. In normal circumstances, you're like, what the hell is going on? Like, why is Vicente Luque not a -400 favorite in the spot? And I'm going to tell you exactly why he's not a -400 favorite in the spot. And the reason being is because my boy Vicente Luque had a brain bleed after the Jeff Neal fight, and he simply has not been the same since. I mean, that performance against RDA and against Buckley, that's a far cry from the Luque we used to know and love. Because, I mean, if y'all remember Prime Luque, Prime Luque kills Themba Gorimbo any way he wants. Prime Luque, one of the best left hooks in the business, not just at welterweight, but guys, like, he knocked out Thiago Maeta Santos back in the day with that left hook. You start to shoot sloppy shots on a guy like Vicente, he's got a nasty darce waiting for you. Also, you stand upright against a guy like Vicente, he will chop down your calf. So, like, Vicente, his skills are levels above Themba Gorimbo. He's just a way better fighter than Themba. The issue is the confidence, the mental. Vicente was like a top 5 guy that was once a backup fighter for a title fight. Like, Vicente was right there. And a lot of people used to consider him the dark horse of the division. But I just personally, and maybe y'all disagree, I just personally can't go back after a brain bleed. especially how he's looked since that fight. The Jeff Neal fight, he got done so dirty that the next two fights, those last two performances, man, it's like Luque was scared to let his hands go. And the RDA fight, when he had a super outsized opponent and a guy in RDA who, have you seen his last couple of fights? Like, you saw what happened in the Jeff Neal fight? Like, I'm just saying, like, RDA is on his way out. RDA is like in his 40s. Luque is like in his early 30s, but with a lot of mileage. And yeah, that fight, I was like, whoa. The only reason Luque won is because, his chin never got tested. Like, they were just grappling the whole time. And then the next fight against Buckley, let's not even talk about the end where he straight up, pulled guard and let Buckley tee off on him. Prior to that, he was trying to pull guard. Not only that, prior to that, there were these little reactions every time he got hit, or he'd do a little wobble, a little chicken dance. He was able to kind of conceal it a little bit. I think Buckley actually kind of took it easy on him, man. Like, there were a lot of instances there where Buckley, I don't know if he didn't pick up on Vicente kind of, wobbling to certain spots or being rocked or whatever, or maybe Buckley was worried about that dangerous counter left hook of Luque. But either way, that did not look like Vicente Luque, that fight or the RDA fight. And then now against Gorimbo, it's like Luque is so much better than this guy, but Luque doesn't fight with the confidence, the assertiveness, the aggression, just straight up that mean streak that he used to. So I think he's hesitant to let his hands go. And with Gorimbo is very fortunate the way that things have been playing out. Shout out to The Rock for giving this kid a platform. I mean, like, when you get endorsed by The Rock, you're going to get favors done for you. That's a lot of eyes on this kid. And he went, got the Nico Price test, which, like, Nico Price has a name, but he's also kind of shot. Now you parlay that with the Luque fight. Luque's got a name, but he's also kind of shot. So this is going to be really sad when Gorimbo just wins this fight off, I don't want to say physicality, but I just want to say off wanting it more. That's it. Just off pushing the pace a little bit more. Now, this was prime for prime, or not even prime for prime. This is pre-Vicente brain bleed. I mean, Vicente kills this guy. Left hook knockout, first round Darce choke, chop his calves down. Like, whatever you want to do, Vicente, you can do to this guy. But I don't trust Vicente to pull the trigger. I don't trust Vicente to have the same killer instinct he once had. And I don't trust Vicente to have the confidence or just be that same guy. So for that reason, it's probably going to be a really ugly fight. But I think that Gorimbo just kind of pushes him a little bit harder and grinds him out and wins a decision. And it's going to be very, very sad. Luque's mojo is completely gone. And when a fighter shows you that they're washed, believe them. Next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Movsar Evloev. He's 18-0, taking on the former bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling, who's 24-4. Currently, they got it. Movsar Evloev minus 250. The comeback on Aljamain Sterling is plus 215. Great fight, great matchmaking. With Movsar Evloev, listen, man, he's a really, really well-rounded guy. And one thing I've noticed, he's put on a lot of size his last few fights. Because, back in Russia, he had fought at like bantamweight before, but here moving up to featherweight, man, he's been looking really good, especially these last few fights. His style might not be the most fan-friendly style around, but make no mistake about it, this guy is as well-rounded as they get, and he's just hard to deal with. And usually with undefeated fighters, I kind of have the whole, no one's exempt from that first L, and no one is exempt from that first L, but I bring up undefeated records to talk about someone simply not being mature enough to keep that undefeated record, or their head exploding, or them thinking they're God's gift to fighting and they can't be beaten. But I think there's a certain maturity about Evloev where the undefeated record doesn't bother me. I mean, yeah, he might take his first L soon. Sure, no one's exempt, but like, this guy is very mature, especially for being undefeated, and he's as well-rounded as they get. And as far as Sterling is concerned, I've never been a Sterling fan. I mean, dating back to when I cashed on Bryan Caraway at plus 350 against him. And look, Sterling's gone on to do some great things in the sport. And I will never deny that Sterling was a legitimate #1 contender in the bantamweight division. That's facts. But the issues I have is when people talk about him being a champ in his title run, like, you won the belt via getting knocked out. When you get knocked out with a knee and they call you the champ, that does not make you the champ. Sterling is a big-time gasser. His striking technique is not the prettiest. I do like his output at times. Like, for example, that Pedro Munoz fight. And I initially thought his fight against Calvin Kattar, I was like, wow, that was very impressive when I watched it live at UFC 300. But when I rewatched it the other night, I was like, oh my God, Calvin Kattar is shot to bits. And there were still certain points where someone that's going to fight back just this much against Aljo is going to still expose all the holes in his game and striking, even in grappling too. Like, yeah, in grappling in terms of like if Aljo takes your back, okay, then there's issues, but he shoots from a mile out, and Evloev's going to stuff these takedowns. The thing with Evloev is he is so confident in his grappling ability that he's been in some deep submission attempts against opponents like Grundy, against opponents like Nick Lentz. Nick Lentz has a nasty guillotine. Grundy had a nasty Darce. Even Arnold Allen most recently attacked the front choke. So, like, yeah, there's going to be submission attempts, but Evloev, firstly, I think he's double jointed. Secondly, he's got so much heart that he'll find the littlest of openings to give himself just a little tiny bit of space to breathe. He'll get out of there and then he'll keep fighting. Then you have to try that shit again. So if you're not going to finish Evloev, I mean, good luck winning a decision against him. So yeah, I just think that Evloev, it's like Aljo running into a brick wall. It's like they're both great grapplers. Evloev's the better grappler. I'm not going to say they're both great strikers because Aljo's striking is absolutely ugly, but Evloev is very meat and potatoes with his striking. And let me say this. I want to say this before I forget. Look at Arnold Allen's face after the Evloev fight, then look at Arnold Allen's face after the Max Holloway fight. Evloev busted up Arnold Allen's face more, which is crazy. And then watch the Dan Ige fight. Evloev busted up Dan Ige too. So what I'm trying to say is, like, for a guy who has a reputation of going to decision every fight, oh, he's harmless. As Dan Ige and Arnold Allen, if this guy is harmless, look at their faces after that fight. Yeah, I respect Sterling. He's an incredible athlete. The fact that you made it to a belt, regardless if I think you truly won it or not, you still made it to a belt. So respect, and I'm glad he's not cutting that insane amount of weight to bantamweight anymore. But I think he's met his match here, and I think that Evloev is just simply ahead of him in every area of MMA. And as a result, I think Evloev's going to win another decision. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Bryan Battle. He's 11-2, taking on Randy Rude Boy Brown, who's 19-5. Currently, they got it. Bryan Battle -240. The comeback on Randy Brown is +200. Listen, I've been very impressed with the improvements from Bryan Battle, man. You know, he dropped from middleweight to welterweight, and he had that setback against Rinat Fakhretdinov where he got outclassed in a way where when I talk about getting outclassed, let me explain to you exactly what I mean by that. Okay, so you pull up the stats of that Bryan Battle and Rinat Fakhretdinov fight, right? Do y'all want to guess what the strike count was? On significant strikes, Rinat outstruck him 43-3. 43-3 on significance. On total strikes, Rinat outstruck him 102-25. On takedowns, Rinat got 7 takedowns. On knockdowns, Rinat got a knockdown. That was one of the biggest beatdowns in MMA clinics I've ever seen. But to this kid, Bryan Battle's credit, he's bounced back in impressive fashion. Now, granted, not against good competition. You know, Gabe Green, AJ Fletcher, Ange Lusa, and Kevin Jousset. Do you know what Randy Brown would be lined against all those fighters? You know, like, it's just a different level. Like, hey, Bryan Battle, you looked great against these guys that aren't going to be in the UFC this time next year. But now you're going back up to the same class as Rinat. And let me be very clear, because I know people don't like to listen. I need people to listen clearly to what I'm saying, because now people are going to be like, are you comparing Rinat to Randy Brown? No, Dumbo, they fight nothing alike. What I'm saying is the caliber, they're ranked around the same area. Rinat and Randy Brown are on the cusp of the top 15 is what I'm saying. Whereas these Ange Lusa, Gabe Green, Kevin Jousset, like, are they even on the cusp of the top 100? Like, do you understand what I'm saying? So this is a massive step up in competition. Randy Brown's won 7 of his last 8 fights, the only loss being to Jack Della Maddalena, who's a top 5 guy in the weight class. You know what I'm saying? And Randy is someone who came into the UFC super green. He's been learning on the job. He's extremely long for the weight class. I believe he does have the longest reach in the weight class. It's either him or Neil Magny. And Randy's footwork is on point. His jab is one of the nastiest in the welterweight division. He's got a disgusting step through knee, which I'm very surprised he hasn't knocked out that many people with, because that one he hit Zaleski with, I was like, damn, how does Zaleski eat that? But from time to time, you will see these brilliant performances from Randy Brown, like that Muslim Salikov fight. One does not simply put Muslim Salikov down like that in that emphatic fashion. And Brown, yeah, he had, a close fight with Zaleski, but what you got to understand is Zaleski's on a completely different level than Bryan Battle. Zaleski knows what it means to have a 7-fight win streak in the UFC. Zaleski's a guy that knocked out Sean Strickland in the first round. Like, Zaleski is as battle tested as they get. He's been a top 15 fighter before. So like Randy Brown, like having real wars with real guys is not an indicator that this, I don't want to say untested anymore because Battle has been paying his dues, but like untested against this caliber of competition, I don't think that means that now Bryan Battle is going to come in here and start doing stuff like that to Randy Brown, man. I think that Randy Brown's been in this position before. He set back the hot prospect before. Remember when he did, remember when he beat Chaos Williams? You know what I'm saying? So he's been in this spot before. And more importantly than any of that, how do we come up with minus 240 Battle plus 200 Brown? Can someone explain that to me? Like, he beat Kevin Jousset. He beat Gabe Green. He looked damn good doing it, but like guys, paying dues and levels of competition are big talking points. And Battle hasn't experienced anything like this. And Battle's a guy that's not necessarily a very clean fighter either. And by clean, I'm not referring to like steroids. I'm talking about clean in terms of your technique. Battle gets hit in a lot of fights. Battle gets hurt in a lot of fights, man. And I think that Randy Brown is so much more experienced that at plus 200, I don't have a choice but to take this risk. Let's take the shot. Let's find out, man. Respect Battle. You've looked immensely better since your Renat fight, but you've been fighting some of the worst to ever do it. Some guys, like I said, these guys aren't going to be in the UFC this time next year. Randy's been in the UFC how long now? Is Randy closing in on his 20th UFC fight? And I think Randy's still hungry to make it to the top 15. So I think Bryan Battle, I've been very impressed with his improvements. I can't wait to see what he does going forward. And I think that one day Bryan Battle will be in the top 15, just not Saturday night. I think it's Randy Brown's time. I think he's going to set back Bryan Battle. He's going to get his top 15 opportunities. And down the line, Bryan Battle, he's going to bounce back from this, get some more wins under his belt. He'll get his chance again to crack the rankings. And I think he will on his next try. Just not Saturday night. Give me Randy Brown to be too long, too smooth, too rangy, too experienced, too seasoned. And I think he's going to pick apart Bryan Battle. Now, next up originally the middleweight division, but now it's an 195-pound catchweight bout between the former middleweight champion, Chris Weidman. He's 16-7, taking on Eryk, your boy Anders, who's 16-8. Currently, they got it minus 110 apiece. So I've already broke this fight down. I did it on the UFC 309 card, and I had picked Chris Weidman on that one, and I even bet him at plus 130 odds. Well, plus 130 and minus 110, not the same. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to pass if they're requiring me to lay minus money. But listen, I think that both these guys are at the twilights of their careers. But I think that it's a good fight for Chris Weidman. I think that Eryk Anders historically chokes in big fights, and I think Eric's only path to victory is to touch the chin of Weidman and potentially hurt him badly or knock him out. But if you want to put context into it, Eryk Anders is the one that's been dropped in his last two fights by Jamie Pickett and Marc-Andre Barriault, respectively. So, yeah, you can always go back to my UFC 309 breakdown to hear my full thoughts on this. But yeah, it just sucks I don't get that plus 130 on Weidman anymore. But I expect a lot of clinching, and ultimately I'm still going to go with Weidman. I'm not going to change my pick. The only thing I'm going to change is that I'm not getting plus 130 anymore. So I probably have to pass from a betting perspective. But yeah, I'm going to go Chris Weidman. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got an absolute all-time banger between Joshua Van, he's 11-2, taking on Cody Durden, who's 17-6-1. Currently, they got it, Josh Van, minus 150. The comeback on Cody Durden is plus 130. Listen, Cody Durden's a very good friend of mine. I've probably said this every single time I've broken down one of his fights. So I just want to let you know that I'm very biased towards him, and I will never pick against him. Could be Brock Lesnar. I got Cody Durden, but Listen, I got a lot of respect for Josh Van. He kind of reminds me of like a young fighter that's kind of modeling his style after Peter Yan, kind of a bit of a slow starter, likes to make his reads, likes to download his data, but there's a certain range. I don't want to give away too much, but there's a certain range where Josh Van does his best in. And if he gets you in that range, that's when he likes to tee off, starts to mix it up to the body and do all kinds of cool stuff. But there's certain ranges where Josh Van is not as comfortable in, where I think that Cody's going to be able to exploit certain things. And I also think that Cody has to consistently switch things up. When Josh thinks that, oh, Cody's going to shoot, that's when Cody needs to bang a little bit. When Josh is like, oh wait, he's not shooting takedowns, now he's banging with me, that's when Cody needs to change levels. And there's specific type of takedowns that are going to work against Van, and certain takedowns that aren't going to work against Van. I think that Cody Durden's very well aware of, Cody knows. Okay. Cody knows. So now it's just about executing. It's easy to say, what the game plan here is, exactly what you need to do to obtain victory, but going out there and doing it under the lights is a different story. So yeah, I think that Josh Van has a very bright future, but I think that he's going to take a veteran lesson on Saturday night against Cody Durden, and he's going to bounce back a lot better from there. And Cody is going to go on to the top 10. And I think there's a whole list of fighters that Cody is waiting to call out. The Tim Elliott's, the Brandon Royvals, the Kai Kara Francis, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I think that Cody Durden with a more well-rounded attack. Don't get me wrong. There's going to be chaotic moments in this fight for sure. The whole question of, well, Cody, Josh being a slow starter, Cody being a fast starter, Josh really picking things up in that third round, Cody slows down. If you think that these guys aren't aware of all those dynamics, you're mistaken. Of course, these guys know the deal. So, yeah, can't wait to see how it plays out. Let's fucking go, Cody Durden. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a match between Max Griffin, he's 20-10, taking on Michael Chiesa, who's 17-7. Currently, they got it Max Griffin minus 120. The comeback on Chiesa is plus 100. This is tough because both guys are kind of at the end of their runs, but historically speaking, when you talk about who achieved greater heights in the sport, it's 100% Michael Chiesa. I ain't even talking about the fact that he won the Ultimate Fighter trophy. I'm talking about this guy actually didn't even make it to like the top 5 and the top 10 of 2 separate weight classes, lightweight and welterweight. I mean, at lightweight, Chiesa had an incredible run. He finished Beneil Dariush, still the only man to tap out Beneil Dariush, tapped out Jim Miller, which is dope, beat Francisco Trinaldo, which at the time was a really big deal. And he's had a lot of other good wins along the way. Goes up to welterweight. He submits Carlos Condit. Granted, the ghost of Carlos Condit, but he still submitted Carlos Condit, beat RDA. It's like, damn, Chiesa, like he's got some names under his belt. And it's interesting for like how ugly his fighting style is. Like his stand-up just looks so hesitant. Like he doesn't want to fight. But man, like thing about Chiesa, he's so deceptively strong. When he gets on your back, when he gets on top of you, like guys, they can't move. And he's got a disgusting squeeze. It's like a half rear naked choke, half neck crank. It's like, you don't think you're going to sleep, your jaw's going to break. Your jaw's not going to break, you're going to sleep. So Chiesa, it's tough to deal with. And when Max Griffin in his prime, man, Max Griffin is a heavy hitter, man. I mean, watch that Zaleski fight. He dropped Zaleski hard in that fight, and he's also had some other good ones along the way. But now I do think that Griffin is slowing down a lot, like drastically. For example, he's been taken down in his last 4 fights, and not against the best competition either in terms of like pure wrestling technique, especially compared to who he's about to fight in Michael Chiesa. But what I'm saying is that Jeremiah Wells took him down. Michael Morales took him down. Michael Morales, total stud. We can give that a pass. But Tim Means took him down 3 times. Tim Means is the man, but Tim Means is like about to retire here. So Neil Magny also took him down. Y'all remember the clinic Chiesa put on Magny. All I'm trying to say is these guys can take you down. I think Chiesa can take you down. It's just hard to trust Chiesa because if he doesn't get his takedowns, assuming Griffin lets his hands go, because Griffin has been kind of gun shy his last few fights. Yeah, I could see a scenario where Griffin kind of keeps him on the outside, pops him with that jab, stuffs the takedowns, and just picks him apart that way. But like the guys that beat Chiesa get Chiesa to take these panic shots, and they catch him with darces like Kevin Hall and like Luque. And have you even seen Griffin attempt a darce choke or any kind of front choke once ever? Like let me see if this guy's even attempted a single submission attempt in his career. He has. He has a 0.3 sub average. So I'm wondering, what fight did he attempt? Oh, I actually know what fight he attempted a sub in. Are y'all ready for this? This is something a lot of y'all forgot about that I just remembered. And I'm hoping we get a little clip here when my boy Meticulous does the shorts for this. But did y'all know that Max Griffin Kimura swept Colby Covington? Interesting. This dude, Chiesa, submitted Beneil Dariush. I know I said that already, so I'm just saying, man, it's going to be super ugly on the feet. And as long as Chiesa is not badly compromised, at some point in this fight, he's going to find a way to get Max Griffin down. Max Griffin has slowed down tremendously. That Jeremiah Wells fight, I was like, oh, shit, what am I watching here? So yeah, give me a Chiesa for the upset, actually. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Chase Hooper. He's 14-3-1, taking on Clay, the Carpenter of Guida, who's 38-24. Currently, they got it Hooper minus 1,000. The comeback on Guida is plus 700. So these two have actually grappled before in a pure grappling match. I'm sure y'all know exactly what happened. And for those that don't know, what happened was that Chase Hooper got him with a calf slicer in the first round. And yeah, I get it. This is MMA. Now there's punches, knees, kicks involved. I like how Hooper's looked since he moved up to 155 pounds. Now he's grown. He's maturing into a grown-ass man. You got to understand, he came to the UFC, he was like 19, 20. He was like a stick figure twig. Now he's a grown-ass man. He's dropping Slava claws and stuff like that. And I mean, like, I personally think Clay Guida is going to shoot into something like a guillotine, shoot, and then some kind of scramble, knee bar, whatever. But like, if Clay wants to, hey, let's keep this fight standing. Let's not give Hooper a chance to submit us. I think Hooper can beat this guy standing too. So I think Hooper's matured enough to the point now where it doesn't matter if it's on the feet, if it's on the ground. I think he's got an answer for Clay Guida, and I think he's going to come out here and finish Clay Guida. So give me Chase Hooper to continue his rise up the lightweight rankings. And last but not least, in the heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Kennedy and Nzechukwu. He's 13-5, taking on Lukasz Brzeski, who's 9-5-1. Currently, they got it Kennedy Nzechukwu minus 600. The comeback on Lukasz Brzeski is plus 425. And I'm really happy that Kennedy moved up to heavyweight. Reason being is this: I truly felt like those weight cuts were just getting the best of him. Listen to me very closely. You watch his fight with Carlos Ulberg, and that was kind of at the beginning of Kennedy's 205 run in the UFC, and he was able to absorb like an insane amount of strikes and then just come back and just knock him out. Still the only man to this day to beat Carlos Ulberg inside the octagon. But then you look at fights like the Dawoon Jung fight or the Dustin Jacoby fight, and just the reactions that Kennedy had to taking those shots were just kind of like, I don't know if I want to call him chinny or if he was just cutting way too much weight, that there was like delayed reactions and certain things. And after that OSP fight, where by the way, the volume was great from Kennedy, but it was like he was still moving like on a slower frequency than he's used to. And I think he finally said, hey man, I'm done cutting this weight. I'm going up to heavyweight where I'm going to have a big skill advantage. But not only that, he's also going to have a size advantage because like he was a massive, massive light heavyweight. I mean, when you look at these physical attributes, guys, Kennedy and Nzechukwu is 6'5". Lukasz is 6'4". Kennedy's got an 83-inch reach. Lukasz has a 78-inch reach. So basically what I'm trying to say is that he's got a 5-inch reach advantage. He's a taller guy. He's got better volume, better takedown defense. I mean, essentially better at everything. He's also a southpaw, which is tough to deal with. And now that he doesn't have to cut that insane amount of weight, I think he's gonna look. I'm not saying title run or anything. Let's relax. But what I'm saying is these lower level heavyweights, because at heavyweight, you guys know it's a whole thing about, hey, we need heavyweights. It's not even, the skill is not as important. And Brzeski's just not a very skilled guy. His best attribute is that he's got some volume. Okay, cool. but it's like meaningless volume, as you saw in that Boudet fight. Call it a robbery all you want. I mean, he couldn't separate himself enough, even with the differential in the strike count. But here, I just think that these light heavyweights are a lot more technically sound than the heavyweights. But the size won't be a factor here because Kennedy's the bigger guy. Kennedy, I think we finally found your proper weight class. And Brzeski's just so average for me. And yeah, Kennedy, he's not free of flaw, but I think he's going to come out here. I think he's got something for Lukasz Brzeski. And I won't be surprised to see a knockout. I mean, Lukasz Brzeski's been starched in 2 of his last 3 fights badly. And the one fight he did win in the UFC against Walter Wacker was more due to a Walter Wacker stunt. Not to mention, that's a completely different matchup than this because Kennedy's not going to be trying to hump legs. Kennedy is going to be trying to use that 5-inch reach advantage, pick this man apart, eventually find the kill shot. So I'm going to go Kennedy and Nzechukwu to win the first fight of the night. So now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So what is the fight to watch for UFC 310? My friends, I think the fight to watch is the featherweight matchup between Nate Landwehr and Doo Ho Choi. I think these two are going to draw a line in the center of the sand, and they are going to stand and bang until one man falls. I truly believe someone is going to take a canvas nap in the center of the T-Mobile Arena. The winner is going to get a $50K bonus. Both of them might get bonuses because it might be one of those one-round wars where it's the fight of the night. Someone goes down, they both get bonuses. So for that reason, Landwehr versus Choi is my fight to watch. My fighter to watch is Randy Brown. Kid, you've been in the UFC for so long. You're approaching 20 UFC fights, and they're still trying you in these situations where you're an underdog to an unproven fighter. Like I remember when I bet you Randy Brown at plus 100 against Mickey Gall, and it was the biggest bet I've ever laid in my life. Now, granted, Bryan battles levels above Mickey Gall, so we're not going to go crazy here. But at plus 200, I mean, I think I need to take at least a 1-unit shot just to keep the bookies honest because I do think Randy Brown has paid more dues than Bryan Battle. And just stylistically speaking, I think his range advantage, his cleaner hands, and his octagon experience is going to be the difference here. So for that reason, Randy Brown is my fighter to watch. Well, my friends, we did it. It's going down this Saturday night live at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Firstly, thank you all so much for the incredible feedback y'all have given me on my new show this week in MMA. Please check it out on my YouTube channel. If y'all are looking for real, legit MMA news, none of that fake news bullshit, y'all hit me up because I'm reporting the real stuff. And I'm not just reporting, this is my favoritism of the month. Like this is the fighter I'm going to kiss ass for in the, like these other guys do. They have their flavors of the month. Whoever's hot at the moment, that's who they want to talk about. I'm going to talk about, the big headlines, but then I also want to do some more obscure stuff that you might not know about, that you might not hear about, because these guys only want to cover the stars of the sport. Yeah, we'll cover the stars of the sport, but we're also going to let you know about these lesser known stories, these up and comers, what's really going on behind the scenes, et cetera, et cetera. So make sure y'all check out my show This Week in MMA. And then as far as half the battle with the fight predictions, man, I'm so grateful for all y'all's love and support. Thank you, Bet105, for supporting today's episode. Thank you to the fans. Please smash the like button, hit the subscribe, leave me a comment, share if you feel so inclined. Truly, truly hope that y'all enjoy the fights. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.